Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming. We are getting to you in a couple of minutes. We are just waiting a few minutes to the people that is registering in the entrance of the school. Thank you.
Anteriores. Eso me han dicho. A ver si está bueno, Arturo. Eso me han dicho. Está que lo que Máster Executive cada vez se pone mejor. Vamos a ver. Vamos a ver. Sí, sí, porque este trocito de niveles. Hay dos.
Well, thank you, everybody, especially for those that came here today. As you know, we are a business school of tourism. We are not facing the best moment for the industry, especially for events. Events are in a high situation. So we wanted to do a hybrid event, especially for us, people that we work with this, but especially as well for our students. we think that we need to be a kind of example. So the situation is complicated, but following or trying to follow the protocols, we provide this hybrid event that I was mentioning. We do hope that you like. Thank you so much for coming. We are starting right now. Anastasia is going to introduce Arturo, and we continue with the whole event. As you can see right now, there is a few innovations trying to get the best experience even in these hard times. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. We're really glad that you joined us today to celebrate the book launch of Arturo Cuenllas, A Higher Purpose, 3 Rules of Conscious Leadership. Arturo is an expert in management, leadership, and sustainability, and he specializes in researching the concept of leadership and developing the leadership capabilities in managers and executives worldwide, applying his extensive experience of managing teams internationally. He has worked in different countries within the hotel sectors, such as Spain, the Dominican Republic, Mexico, the Philippines, Germany, and France. The book that he is going to present today concerns the relevant issues of conscious leadership. What does this notion embrace? How can we achieve it? And why is it important for people and companies? Finally, Arturo will reveal the 3 rules of conscious leadership. Enhance the power in others. Second, enhance the power in yourself. And the third, enhance the value in all the stakeholders. Now, let's welcome Arturo and enjoy this evening.
Thank you very much. Thanks. Well, thank you very much. First, to all the people here gathered in this room. Not many because of the situation, but we have to fulfill the security protocols. Then second, to all the people online, we thought that it was much better to design, to present this book with a video. All right, so the original idea was to me talking, especially for those people in here, but then we thought that most of the people that were going to be gathered online. So I thought, all right, so, and because of the mask, because of this situation and all of the barriers we have for communicating more powerfully, we thought it was going to be a better opportunity to design a video. So I've been like working for this video, I don't know, maybe 3 days in a row. The editing part, I try to make this video enjoyable, all right? So, and by the way, we thought this was a good idea to divide the presentation into 2. So instead of going through 30 minutes video, we are going to split it into 15 minutes. Then we're going to kind of freeze all of the knowledge we got from the video, maybe, or all of the insights, and then see, or you guys online, people here in the room, you can start asking questions. We'll respond those questions, this Q&A, and then we go for the second part, Q&A, and then we finish the video. There's lots of things to say. The problem always, it comes when you have to present something in 30 minutes, even more difficult in 18 minutes, that wasn't the case. And how can you synthesize everything? That's the challenge, no? I haven't invited to a tech talk presentation yet, but I always thought it was one of the most challenging things to do. How can you condense 18 minutes of lots of knowledge from a book in 18 minutes? All right, so I just thought, hopefully, I just came up with a good job. Right? So we watch the video, 15 minutes, second part, make it. Okay?
Okay, now let's pay attention to the screen and then we will have some time for discussion.
Thank you.
Have you reflected about the concept of leadership? What it takes to be?
Have you reflected about the concept of leadership?
People say that being a leader is about having a vision, inspiring people.
People say that being a leader is about having a vision,
Strategy.
inspiring people,
Leadership is also about being honest and credible,
developing strategy.
check.
Leadership is also about
Also, some people have associated the concept of integrity with being charismatic.
Also, some people have
So these
associated
concepts
the concept of
attributes are essential and being except being charismatic.
So these concepts or attributes are essential, and I think, except being charismatic, because I would say that
So these concepts are
psychopaths they can be
essential.
charismatic too. So these concepts are essential, but the problem when we talk about leadership is that we stay in a superficial world. We don't get, or we don't explain the concept of leadership into a very granular level. The idea of leadership, it has happened with the same as with the concept of democracy. Both the concepts, they've been tampered with so much that they've lost their values. Both concepts represent a very positive notion. People, they have good intentions when they talk about both, but in reality, when it takes to put their behaviors or being a role model, there's a gap. So there's a gap between intentions and reality. Now, this is called the self-awareness gap, and it happens very often in leadership. So what do you think it happens when we ask managers to rate themselves? Most of them, they rate above average. How is this possible? Because the self-awareness gap.
I remember one of my first managerial experiences, a long time ago, in a Spanish hotel resort where I work as a manager, located in Dominican Republic. Well, in this hotel, executives often talk about leadership, but the assumed principle was maximum distrust towards all employees. I still remember my first interaction with the local director. The first thing he did was give me a bunch of keys and told me that everything should be closed, even the drawer with pencils and paper. I felt like the law of the danger. In this research, the executives had established an inferior compensation policy. The local salary was meager, and our hotel complex paid even less. So this scenario caused local talent to go to other hotel resorts that provided better salaries and had a better working environment. So the best did not work with us. Instead, there were many other employees who should have not been hired in the first place. As you can guess, the selection process was anything but rigorous. I also remember that this hotel resort general manager ruled like a little dictator. His mere presence conveyed fear. This executive toured the facilities in his four-wheel drive car, and if he saw any worker with a suspicious attitude, she or he would be fired on the spot, quick and without explanation. So I could have been training my team, developing their talent, and overnight and without prior consultation, received the news. The CEO had fired one of my team members because the manager, the CEO, did not see him at work. Didn't matter that maybe he was on his day off or maybe running an errand, because nobody argued with the CEO. He applied this sentence despite the summary judgment. So you can imagine seeing his car from afar, and one had the same feeling as seeing Christine. Remember the car from the famous Stephen King movie? And yet we need to understand that the leader sets the tone. And for better or worse, this tone begins with the top executive. In this hotel complex, executives started from a mistrust mindset base that demanded continuous control of all of the staff. However, it seemed that the more controls they put in place and the more audits they perform, the more problems arose. The exciting thing is that when you get to the root of the problems by asking why many times, explanations are clear. In this context, we can see that the belief system and the character of the top leaders is often the cause of most problems. These managers did not understand that the root of many issues lay in the company's dysfunctional organizational culture. This culture manifested itself in the form of fear of bosses, mutual mistrust, and low pay. This atmosphere alienated the excellent workers and left us with the bad ones.
This is a story because in leadership we create our own reality. This is called the Pygmalion effect, or a self-fulfilling prophecy. Now, if we put lots of expectations and we trust people, chances are that we are going to affect their performance.
Let's see one example. Even if you can, I want you to promise me you're going to do your best.
All right. your best.
Okay.
You gonna give me your best.
I'm gonna give you my best.
It's off the ground, just your hands and feet. There you go. A little bit left. A little left.
I bet he got it.
There you go. Show me good effort. That's it, Brock. That's it.
Not the 20 yet.
Forget the 20. You give me your best. You that's it. Very best. Keep moving, Brock. That's it. That's it. That's it. Going. Don't quit on me. Keep going. Keep driving it. Keep your knees off the ground. That's it. Your very best. Don't quit on me. Your very best. Keep driving. Keep driving. There you go. There you go. That's it. You keep driving. Keep your knees off the ground. Keep. There you go.
He's heavy.
I know he's heavy.
I'm by out of strength.
You negotiate with your body to find more strength, but don't you give up on me, Brock. You keep going. You hear me? You keep going. You're doing good. Keep going. Do not quit on me. You keep going. It hurt. I know it hurt. You keep going. You keep going. It's all hard from here. 30 more steps. You keep going, Brock. Come on. Keep going. Burn. And let it burn. It's all hard. Keep going, Brock. Come on. Come on, Brock. 10 more steps. 10 more. 10 more. 10 more. Keep going. Don't quit. Give me yours. You can. You can. 5 more. 5 more. Come on, Brock. Come on. Don't quit. Don't quit. Come on, Brock. 2 more. 4.
Let's go to the 50. Oh, heavy more.
You are the most important player on this team. If you walk around defeated, so will they. Don't tell me you can more than what I've been seeing. You just carried a 140-pound man across this whole field on your arms.
That you are in a small team and you have an excellent boss, a boss who stretches you, a boss who challenges you constantly. This type of person who's always trying to get the best out of you. But she or he always trusts in your potential, gave you lots of autonomy, she empowered you, and she cared about that development. Now, chances are that you are going to respond in a positive way. Now, this also could happen in a macro perspective. Now, is the whole company culture, the whole organization believing in the potential of employees? So the $1 million question is, why don't we put all of the cards towards our employees? Why don't we fully develop our people? Why don't get the best out of our people? Managers, they often say they believe or that employees are the most important assets. But when it comes to put this into reality, there's, again, a gap between intentions and reality. And the response is because most business paradigm is about making profits. Profits are essential. But when we put profits in the beginning of the equation, now they're going to be trade-offs. And these trade-offs are going to affect first employees, then customers, suppliers, etc., etc. But employees, they're going to be affected. Yes, I know, talking about profits in COVID times is an utopia. Business nowadays basically are fighting for surviving. But hey, normality will arrive, and business as usual is going to be the current paradigm. Now, when managers, they think about profits or maximizing profits in the short term, everything is about numbers. And everything is reduced to ratios and years. So employees aren't the first priority. Don't get me wrong, profits are essential. Without profits, there aren't jobs nor employments. But they need to be, they can be a byproduct of pursuing a higher purpose. What do I mean by pursuing a higher purpose? What is the purpose of a company? Leaders should ask themselves questions like, what impact do you want to make on the world? What do you believe in? Or how can my job or my company make a difference? Purpose must connect with all of the employees in a company. It is a source of intrinsic motivation. This is a very powerful form of motivation. A higher purpose connects with employees, customers, suppliers, and also shareholders and community. We need to reframe the idea of leadership and adapt it to our times. A leader must follow a higher purpose, a purpose which is going to connect and inspire everyone in the organization. A higher purpose must follow certain rules. Why rules? Because rules are necessary for the developing of any activity. In my book, I present a higher purpose, which is divided in 3 rules. And these rules, they conform what I call or I define as a conscious leadership. The first rule is about your employees. It's about enhancing the power in others, in your employees, getting the best of them. The second rule is about you leading, is about leading yourself as well. Second rule says that you must enhance the power in yourself. The third rule is about the rest of the stakeholders, starting with customers, but also it's about the environment and society. I'll explain you the first rule. The first rule says enhance the power in others. What do I mean by power? What power? Research proves that most employees, they want to do a great job. They want a job which is meaningful. They want a job that allows them to put all of their competencies and mastery, and they want a job in which they can have certain autonomy. They want to do an excellent job, and yet we often see that many jobs are meaningless, treating employees like little yellow minions without the possibility of being self-fulfilled. When we ask the employees what they think about their bosses' responses, either most people rate managers at mediocre levels. A higher purpose must get the best out of the people. Leading other people is about making them better, period. Make them do their jobs better and in turn make the organization better. So easy to understand, yet it is very challenging to execute, because for this to happen, you not only have to have suitable employees, but we also have to have appropriate bosses at all levels. We must provide people with adequate leadership. However, research also proves that most bosses are mediocre. As I said, conscious boss is an exceptional boss, capable of bringing the best out of the people and the team. He is or she is a good coach. You know, the interesting thing about this is that she might not be aware that she's a great coach because she doesn't follow a technique. She does not apply any method. She is a great coach because she's capable of generating self-awareness in herself and into others. Basically, she is credible to other people. Why? Because she has the right character. She's honest and humble, but she's also assertive and candid. She has the ability to challenge the person because she cares about the person. She applies what some companies define as tough love.
Now let's proceed to the discussion part. So if you have any comments, any questions, you're very welcome. Yes, please.
Well, we are in a moment where we find difficult to apply maybe the traditional rules for leadership, for management, because maybe we are in a time where changes are happening very quickly. Sometimes it's very difficult to adapt to these changes. So do you think these rules, for example, that you have mentioned here, are going to be applicable forever? Do you think that these are rules that maybe in 10 years from now, maybe with the coming of the artificial intelligence and the transformations that we are foreseeing, more or less, do you think these principles will be applicable at the same level, or maybe with some kind of evolution? I don't know.
I think it's a very interesting question, a very good question. I actually talk about this situation in the future. So in my chapter number 10, I talk about delivering human, more exceptional service, really human service. And then I talked about technology, how technology is going to change absolutely everything. Right? Is it technology? And talking about technology, we talk about robotics, we talk about artificial intelligence or automation. Now, this technology affects especially those jobs that are meaningless, manual service jobs. What is a manual service job? For example, it's a job of a receptionist in a hotel or a job of a waiter in a restaurant who's just based only on delivering dishes to the table, that's all, without not providing any experience whatsoever. And I think that this is going to change. Basically, it's not going to cancel all of the jobs. Lots of jobs are going to reconvert. And I think now there's a great opportunity to focus on what really matters, right? So robotics, artificial intelligence, or automation is not going to substitute the intrinsic, the more human values about providing that service I'm talking about, when you focus on customers. So there's nothing it can replace a genuine smile as a simple thing, but a creative solution for a problem that any employee from a restaurant or a hotel would implement when he gets. Being empowered, being capable, being master. And there's no way robotics and artificial intelligence, they're going to substitute, this proactivity to anticipate customers' needs. Then in terms of leadership, being a manager, I think it's going to be the same in 20 years from now because it's been always like that. Now the new component on the equation in this 21st century is that businesses should be more responsible. Business should be more conscious. Business is not just about making money, maximizing profits. That we all know because we all experience in our jobs. Because we work for organizations that they were just focusing on making money in the short term. Now it's an utopia because the COVID times everything has changed. But hey, I think, and we have good examples. No? I think we have one professor in here who just joined us that he changed his paradigm as well. Now he's providing lots of value to society. Because well, with his restaurant, he's donating lots of food, plus making profits as well, because both things are. So that's the new thing. The good thing's been a long response. So, fine.
Thank you. Any questions? Anyone?
What's the difference between a vision, a mission, and a purpose of a company?
Yeah, well, it's been really intertwined most of the time, and we've studied this in business school often or in the university, and people or companies, they talk about the mission, the vision. I always say to my students, what really matters most is the purpose, which could be intertwined with the mission as well. But basically, the purpose stands by asking the question why. Now, if you are an entrepreneur, the question you should ask is why? Why you decided to run this business, to open your business, maybe a restaurant? Is it just for making money? Is a legitimate response? No, good. Making money is good. Right? Actually, making money is necessary. But the question is that purpose of making money, maximizing profits, going to hook all the employees with you? Because if it's not, then what motivation there is going to be as usual. Business as usual, people work there. But hey, that's what I'm talking about. So the higher purpose is something bigger than. So it's not necessarily related to being a social company. It could be related to innovation, to provide an extraordinary service, and also creativity. Right. So purpose stands for why. Then the mission, it could respond to how we're gonna differentiate our company from the competitors. And then the vision is how would like other people see our business once we, for example,
Do you have any questions or comments online?
Yes, Ramon Andilon is going to ask him. So please, Ramon, just put on your micro and go ahead. Well, if it's not working, we left your question to the end of the session, Ramon.
All right. Any questions here in class or online?
Okay, I am going to read Ramon's question because he's writing in the chat. So he says, I feel sorry for those employees that might have lost their motivation because in capitals of previous experience with capitals again, bad bosses. Do you think that with a conscious leader, they can have their motivation back?
Well, I think everyone's experience, if you have experience, has been the chances that you've crossed with a mediocre boss, or even worse, a bad boss. No? And I think research and one of the research proved, I think it was Gallup, the organization, which proved that one of the first reason we leave our jobs is because of our direct boss. We have a very bad boss, and then we leave the organization. We change to another. Now, the good news is that being a good boss, or even an exceptional boss, is not about being the chosen one. It's about developing. Right? I was myself a bad boss when I was 27 years old. I committed many mistakes. But there is a process in between, which is called self-awareness, which, by the way, wakes you up. And then there's a process also about just trying to get rid of your ego as well, and then saying, hey, I can improve, right? So the problem is that most bosses, they think they're great. It's like, I don't need to develop my managerial skills because I'm great. And I think my employees, they think I'm great. But the fact is that they don't ask. They don't ask employees to rate their bosses. I don't know if you work in maybe the big companies like Melia or maybe any others, they kind of conduct 360-degree reviews. But most of the times, performance review are from up down, so we don't have the chance to evaluate our bosses. And if we do, there's a bit of fear in there. So it has to be anonymous because there's no transparency. Now, organizations, they know that the best thing to do is to evaluate their bosses, not to punish the bad ratings, but to help them develop. Because leadership skills can be developed. Again, I think I'm a good proof of that because I was a terrible boss, and I can sign for that. But I change. Okay.
So, do you have any more questions or comments or doubts?
Yeah. In the video, you said that bosses are mediocre. So why are they mediocre and what are the levels?
Okay, why say mediocre? Because mediocre in Latin is in the middle of the mountain. No, Ocris is mountain and medium in the middle of the mountain. So mediocre is average. Why mediocre? Because they aren't capable of bringing the best out of people. And I think one of the most difficult things, I remember, I think good question, one student asked me one, what's the most difficult thing of being a manager? And I always said, because it's easy to just lead a team for the first time, which it was maybe a dysfunctional team with no priorities, no goals, share whatsoever, and then put this team in the right path. That's just it. Difficult thing is to bring a team from good to exceptional. All right, I think it was this guy, Herman Miller, the founder of the design company Herman Miller. He was asked once, what is the toughest thing you do in your job? And he said, fighting against entropy. Entropy is the tendency of the universe to chaos and disorder. I think Murphy said when something is wrong, it can go wrong. So it's like that. We tend to relax. When we are in our peak of success, companies, we individuals, we get lots of recognition, we tend to relax. You can ask Zinedine Zidane, how it's difficult for him, to keep this team winning after 3 championships in a row. So I'm not sure I've accomplished that, if I tell you the truth. I rate managers in exceptional levels, good managers, mediocre managers, bad managers, terrible managers, and also psychopaths. And this is not a joke. I mean, research also proved, it's Michael O'Hare, one of this is Canadian expert in psychopath. He says that psychopaths, they can be found, especially in organizations. 6% of the psychopaths in the world, they are found in organizations. Non-profits, companies, sometimes they are assessors, assistants, not necessarily the top bosses.
Okay, maybe people online want to make any comments to put it in discussion. Okay, so if no further comments, let's follow the second part of the video, and then we will have another discussion section.
Okay.
The traits, they don't happen by spontaneous generation.
spontaneous generation. In fact, she is credible. She is a good coach. She can develop her self-awareness and induce self-awareness into others because she works on her character. And this brings us to the second rule: enhance the power in you. A conscious leader, a conscious boss, an exceptional boss is someone who's always working on his or her personal development, working on her character. What do I mean by a character? A character is what we are going to define as the internal operating system. Leading others and leading yourself is very intertwined. Now, you cannot affect or influence into others if you don't have the capacity to affect, influence in yourself. So our character is conformed of personal traits, values, and beliefs. When we talk about integrity or temperance, judgment, justice, or accountability, drive, courage, humility, collaboration, and so on, we are referring to our character. Interesting, because our judgment or our decisions or our drives, they're going to be influenced by this internal operating system, our character. More evolved our character is, the more effective we can be professionally and personally. The problem is that most companies, or many companies, headhunters, also some business schools, they don't attend to what matters in leadership, that essential part of the leader, the inner part, the character. They rather to stay in the technical area. They so wrongly define hard skills. But as we've seen, as we're going to see in this book, our character is influencing our hard skills. If we don't have the character right, we are not going to be effective in our hard skills, in our technical role, in our technical competencies. And by the way, if you are the leader, the founder of your organization, you better have the character right, because your character is going to affect everyone. The leader sets the tone for good and for bad. So if you don't have the character right, everything else collapses.
Let me tell you the story. This is a story of a visionary businessman who was unable to unleash other people's potential and improve his organization because of his lack of character. It's also the story of an executive who only attempts to technical skills without attention to his internal operating system. A leader who does not reflect his values and displays dysfunctional behaviors that infect his organization. As it happens with patients who are unaware of their condition, companies also tend to ignore their symptomatic ailments until the symptoms materialize. At this time, Uber was seen as an example of innovation, talent, and job satisfaction. But inside, the environment was beginning to suffocate some. The founder of Uber always wanted to create an organization governed by leadership principles similar to those of Amazon. Values that promote innovation, talent, meritocracy, proactivity, and employee autonomy. But the question is, are these values or leadership guiding principles enough for creating a great company? The problem often arises when businesses only focus on hard skills and competencies and only looking at performance. They are certainly necessary, but they need to be balanced with soft human values and competences such as respect, tolerance, humility, and honesty. Similarly, when companies treat financial results as an end in and of themselves, often they overlook toxic behaviors, especially when an offender delivers results. In Uber, cases of sexual harassment were happening to several women. Susan Fowler was one of them. This computer engineer had reported the harassment of her boss to human resources. She even provided screen captures in these screenshots, you could read how her boss proposed her with sexual relations. And when Susan reported the views, human resources passed the buck. Even though the evidence was so obvious, they were unwilling to take action. His attitude was that the harasser was a manager with outstanding evaluation and obtained excellent results in his work. HR told her that this was the first time it happened also. So wondering if it was just happening to her, Paul decided to talk to other female colleagues. In her research, she discovered other cases, women who had suffered the same type of harassment from the same person or other men who work in the company. Tired of reporting to human resources and having them to do nothing, and seeing how her bosses threatened her to retaliate her for persisting in her accusations, she decided to accept another job offer. But first, she decided to publish her story on her blog. The article was titled, "Reflecting on a Very Strange Year at Uber." The New York Times noticed and recognized the relevance of the post. What could have been a publication of little significance became a story of vast magnitude. There were many other allegations like Susan's from employees about the working climate. The board of directors, alarmed by the reported events, decided to hire a law firm to investigate all these accusations. This firm initiated an internal audit, arranged interviews with active employees and others who left their jobs, looked under the rags, and problems began to come to light. Unacceptable behaviors such as cocaine consumption at company parties, vandalism, sexism, unethical cases with suppliers and customers, toxic people who were untouchable, internal wars over colleagues and bosses' work, projects stopped due to fights between departments. So this entire process ended up with the forced resignation of the CEO and founder of the company, along with executives. In this case, Travis' business brilliance was overshadowed by the playboy demeanor he often displayed. He used to brag about picking up and sleeping with girls since he was famous. Even encouraged my staff to pick up women at corporate parties. In an email addressed to 400 employees, pretending to make a joke out of it, he noticed them of the hours they could have sexual relations, based on two rules. The email said, urgent, read this immediately. You better read it or I'll kick your ass.
So Travis, like millions of people on this planet, did not mature emotionally. His lack of character was affecting his strategic vision, his entrepreneurial spirit, his intelligence and technical competences. His character was dysfunctional, and he wasn't aware of how his behaviors and actions were impacting to other people. It's like a virus in a computer affecting the computer operating system. Travis' work was affecting the company culture. So a conscious leader needs to work on his or her self-awareness. Being self-aware is not that easy. The eminent scholar and prolific author Warren Bennis advised a long time ago that becoming a leader was about improving as a human being. Leadership is character, he said. We are our own raw material. A leader cannot lie about himself, especially about himself. The problem is that although Bennis described a critical path for our professional trajectory as exceptional bosses, the reality is that we all deceive ourselves to a greater or lesser extent. We fool ourselves constantly. And this is the most human thing we have. Why? Because, again, we lack self-awareness. Factory can be seen as our internal operating system, like the iOS of our smartphone. It's interesting because our judgment or our decisions or our drives, they're going to be influenced by this internal operating system, our character. Question is, how can we develop, improve our self-awareness? Self-awareness is key for being better leaders. We see self-awareness as the app which is going to allow us to renovate, actualize our internal operating system. Now, self-awareness can be developed by a very ancient and powerful tool, which is called meditation. I think it's time to incorporate meditation into management. Science has proved that meditations can do great things into us. The virtues of meditations, they've been proved. There are many, many things that meditation can produce into our body and into our mind. But one thing for sure is clear, meditation is going to improve our self-awareness, and this is very important. We can practice meditation in a daily basis, maybe 20 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, but we need to be constant. Companies are incorporating meditation into their daily practices. Some companies, they even create spaces for and encouraging employees to meditate. I'm thinking of companies like LinkedIn, Salesforce, or Google. These companies, they encourage, they even organize retreats to meditate. Last rule of a higher purpose and conscious leadership is about the rest of the stakeholders. We talk about employees, we talk about ourselves, but now it's time to talk about customers. Customers and society. What do I mean by society? I do mean by society, a community, and the environment. So companies and leaders, they need to provide amazing, extraordinary service and value to customers, but they need to constantly improve and strive to reduce environmental impacts in their operations and throughout the supply chain. On the other side, they need to increase their social impacts. Now, we're gonna see this idea of a business or the business as a force of good. There are many systems, organizations, and certifications that they are encouraging business to be more responsible, to be more conscious, to provide more to society. Talk about customers. The problem is that most of the time we receive mediocre service. Companies talk about it, but they tend to neglect the human factor. In the race to deliver value to customers, the company strategy often prioritizes on technology, product development, price, location, convenience, and quality. And although these variables are fundamental, an essential thing is left aside, and this variable or this essential thing is the human component of service. A mediocre service is a bureaucratized service. It focuses on procedures, standards, and policies rather than customers. A conscious leader and a higher purpose must produce impact to society. It's about providing value not only to customers and to our employees, but also to society as a all of these years, mastering leadership, they've come up to my personal purpose. My personal purpose is to explain, to influence all people. It doesn't matter in which part of the organization they found themselves, whether they are top leaders or rank and file employees, how their actions can influence, how they can work towards more conscious leadership. Now, what does the concept imply? How can we develop our conscious leadership? What are these three rules? These things are going to be explained in the book. And I think they can provide lots of values to many people. George is a Harvard professor, and he used to be the former CEO of Metronomic. And he poses 3 questions of leadership to his students. I think it's very interesting to bring these questions. The first question is about what kind of leader you'd like to be. How's it going to be your style? How do you think you're going to influence other people? What good can you bring into other people, but also into the organization? How can you make those people better? The second question is about yourself, as with our second rule of conscious leaders. It's about how are you going to work in your personal development, your internal operating system, your character. Now, it's very interesting to think that, and important to think that leadership is not about being the chosen one. It's not about pulling the sword from the rock. It's about effort. It's about having a growing mindset. It's about working every day on yourself. The third question is related to our third rule. It's about making an impact. It's not only about your employees and your company, but it's also about society. How are you going to impact to society? How are you going to make your job more meaningful because of your positive impact into society? My book answers these 3 questions. Thank you very much.
Okay, now let's turn to the final section of questions and comments. So first, I wanted to explain for the people online how you can ask questions in case you had troubles. First, you should raise your hand, and then our moderator will allow you to speak. Then you should turn on the micro and start speaking. So in case you have any questions, just don't hesitate to ask it. So maybe someone in class wants to start? Yes?
You mentioned competence to improve our character, which is self-awareness, and you said that you can develop it through meditation. How can you do it? What are the tools, and why is it useful?
Yeah, well, as you said, self-awareness is, I think, this author, Erich Starik, she mentioned, and actually, I think she's right, as many other people have talked about. You know, self-awareness is a meta competence, leadership skill competence most important in this 21st century. Now, it's really easy to say you are self-aware. I know myself. I know better than others. But then, as well as research, and it's like it's so easy to fool ourselves constantly that we think we are self-aware, but chances are we are not. All right. Sometimes we play the role of the victim. We think the world or someone else has treated us in an unfair way, or we aren't not only aware of what is happening to us, but also how other people perceive us. And you know, the problem, as I said, is like organizations aren't helping, because I always recommend to companies to start incorporating, because this is not about opinions, this is about facts. This is like what your employees think about you, right? Whether it's fair or not, but if that perception is real, no, you better. So I think it's the best tool, right? So 360 review feedback you should implement in all the companies, plus encouraging people to be self-aware. So like you have a problem, how are you going to work with that problem instead of thinking that the life or the universe is unfair to you? How are you going to cope with that problem? All right, let's just put the ego aside.
Thank you. We have any questions? Yes, please.
Yes. First of all, Arturo, it's an honor to be here. I'm really happy to listen, you know, and know how long you are going to, that you want to explain us that the human delivery that you say in service is luxury. I have a question. that luxury, the technology will help us, or we have to work with technology and like I don't know, improve our power to deliver this human connection with the client, with the customers, and with ourselves.
I think
sorry about my English.
That's fine.
We
understood you perfectly well, and that's super great. So I think technology is there to help us. Like, for example, how are you going to apply technology in service? So technology is going to help us a great deal, right? But at the end, there is something which cannot be replaced by technology, which is that human component. In this case, is human inner component. Now, it's been noticed that those exceptional bosses are the people that they really can. I mean, you don't need to meditate. Meditation, it could be a good thing for you or not. There are many other ways to develop your self-awareness. But at the end, you need to fight with that ego, which is in there is your amygdala, which is pulling from you because okay, someone has said to you that you aren't as good as you are. Now, I think the technology can help you, but it cannot replace that part, which is that human part. So it's like, I need to work on this. I've seen in companies like those, it requires lots of courage. Now, imagine that you thought you were amazing. I think, Jaime, you've been a very experienced executive, right? And you've worked in many companies. And imagine, not your case, because you've always been a good leader, but imagine that one day someone tells you that you aren't that good. It's not you, it's like your employees telling you, because they just had a chance to rate you. So from 1 to 5, they gave you a 2.5. And then along with the rating, there are comments. It was the first time to you to confront these problems. And then you start reading like, hey, you might not be a good listener, or you might not be a role model in certain things, etc., etc. So what are you going to do with that? Right? Your first reaction is going to be like, well, the world is unfair, these people, they are right, I'm going to kill them, no, maybe. But there's a pain process in here, which is a psychological pain, which is normal. But how are you going to get with that, along with that? What are you going to do? I think the most encouraging people I've seen is like people, they open those reviews and say, hey, this is what you rate me. I'm not going to pinpoint who said so or not. But right, I want you to let you know that I'm going to do something about it.
It's very healthy for the company.
Yeah.
Very healthy.
But companies are encouraging process. I think we always stay in the technical side. You have experience, you are a good food and beverage manager because you have lots of experience, you work in the managerial oriental, so everyone is bright by the career. But at the end, leading other people is more than the technical role, the technical skills. Do you need to be the most intelligent person on your team? Maybe not. You need to be very confident. You need to be, you need to apply all of your mastery, but hey, people don't expect you to have all of the responses for all the problems. Because if you do that, you're micromanaging, and then you are not to the problem. Yeah.
When the leaders thinks that he has to be the best in everything.
Yeah.
But
it's really difficult. It's really easy to say. Conceptually, everyone, we understand that, but when we have to put it into context, into reality, again, it's not that easy. And I always say that and I think it happened to me. When I was that great manager, I thought I was, not because I said so, because other people recognized that. It's because there's a process of maturity, emotionally, you are more emotionally mature, right? And you don't need to be 55 years old to be emotionally mature. People with 60 years old have never matured emotionally. You can be 25 years old and be emotionally mature. But in my case, I wasn't emotionally mature. It was like I was in a defensive mode. Having this great image about myself, which wasn't responding to reality. Thank you.
We have some people online that wanted to ask something.
Yeah, we have 3 people waiting. So please, Isabella, if you want to begin with your question, you have to press the micro in your screen.
Yeah, hello. Hi, so for someone who isn't naturally a leader, you don't hear me?
Well,
hello?
Okay. Someone in class wants to ask something.
You can write it down.
Hello?
Okay, I think one important thing that we somehow said is that you have to have kind of vision of yourself if you want to be a leader. I mean, you have an image of the kind of leader that you want to achieve, that you want to be in the future, and somehow you need to analyze yourself and to have a kind of self-assessment of all the traits that you want to develop. You want to be a leader. So this is typical for many people to really be honest and objective the moment of self-analyzing and identifying the gaps between the kind of people that you are and the kind of leader that you want to be. How can this be done in a practical way?
I think there's one part which is personal, and the other part is with the help of people. Whose people? Those people that they are critical to you. You have a mentor. Suggest that you should surround with people that they are critical to you. Now you have a mentor, someone who you really admire, and he or she knows you, could help, right? Organizations, they could implement systems as well in place. I think, well, the character of the leader, the framework is not mine, it's from the EV Business School and the group of professors. They create these 11 dimensions with lots of elements about the character of the leader, right? Collaboration, integrity, what it takes. And they design a couple tools, which is a 360 review feedback for leaders, so with practical questions, right? So how humble are you in some situations? So people is going to ask. So there's a component of people helping you, credible to you because everyone has an opinion, but not all of the opinions are right. Then the organization, and by the way, human resources and your boss, they should take a big role in here. The information from people underneath you, and then obviously there's an individual. Now this is reflecting you with a pillow, but right? This is not about ruminating the problem. Okay? Now how can you analyze the problem but being in a neutral perspective, not really here developing an ulcer, right? So now, for example, your boss told you that you went there, but you need to improve something, and then your world just collapsed because of that, right? That you just went to you couldn't sleep, you were kind of ruminating the problem. But ruminating is good because ruminating is like a kind of a vicious spiral. So what you do, and what I recommend is like, the process, for example, of meditation is like you breathe, you focus on your breathing, and then your image of your boss telling you that you are not right is something which you see, you feel here inside, how is it affecting you, but you don't judge. You don't ever judge the situation. Now, the only process you do that, the only thing you do that is enough for improving and also you feeling better. All right, so not getting this. So I think these three things are really good.
Okay, now we can access the questions from online.
Yeah, we have a question from Sergio. He says, hello Arturo, nice to see your launch book. I will buy for sure. My question is about leadership, of course. How could all your teammates follow you as a leader in a hotel company? Basically, I would like to know a few tips to put into my career to be a good manager leader. Thanks in advance, Arturo. Un abrazo.
Can you repeat exactly what you?
How could all your teammates follow you as a leader in a hotel company? A few tips.
Well, that's the thing. Well, that's lots of things. When we talk about leadership, we need to. I always say to my students, don't give me that response. You need to be a good leader because it's not valid. Right? It's like, well, you need to get it right. But one thing for sure is going to happen is like you need to influence in other people. And I think that's in the chapter number 2. I talk about it. One of the reasons. I mean, I don't know if you guys had the same problem when you were first managers for the first time. The first time ever you were a manager. I was 25 years old. That was my case. 27 years old. I remember I worked in France. That was my dream job. I was really certain to be a front office manager. It was a luxury hotel. They fired me in 3 months because I was a really terrible boss. I thought that being the boss, it was about giving orders, being like this orchestra conductor, and that everyone would follow your orders. But hey, then it happened that I had more experienced people underneath, conflicting people, the language barrier as well, many other things. But I wasn't prepared to be a manager.
So I'm not going to say that you need to be experienced, right? Because there's going to be a first step. But I think you should really start in a good way. I wish I had the framework, this framework I'm giving you at this moment back when I was 27 years. I wish. Because I was so confused and I was so, as many people still they are. Because by the way, many people, they are promoted and they aren't prepared to be leaders. Why they are promoted? Because they are good with the competence, the technical skills. Because they are star individual employees. But when it takes to be a leader, it's not about you, it's about the whole team. So how are you going to influence? And people, they are not going to get influences. Okay.
So Isabella, please, can you try to ask? I do think that it's
Hello?
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Yeah? Okay, so my question is that in a time where we are forced to collaborate from different environments, countries, and time zones, what is your advice on how to turn a group of strangers, which is especially relevant, for example, with our study? I mean, maybe 3 months back, but we are forced to work in groups and develop this sort of cohesive team energy where everyone's motivated to work together, everyone has this same sense of why it's important and why it's valuable to do the projects we're doing and to generally like inspire this intrinsic motivation. Which when you're in groups and you're in person, I find that's a lot easier to do. And now we're, some of us are in person, some of us are on computers. We've never met before. So how can we achieve that?
Well, that's a super good question, and I think that's the elephant in the room now at this moment. I think, well, first of all, in order to create a good team or a good organization, you need contact, and that's not happening now. All right, so most organizations are encouraging employees to work home because it works. They seem to be productive, but the problem is that you need to interact. And it's not the same working in a team which you are in the same room or you are in the same spot, because that cannot be substituted. So one thing for sure is going to affect the company culture, and I think what you can do if you are a manager or you don't have another thing but to work remotely with everyone. Now, it's not enough with the Zoom meetings, and there should be more contact. This case, the contact, it should be one by one, whether it's the Zoom or whether it's the telephone, but that contact is necessary. The manager and the employee as well, the contact with all of this. All right, but there's something which is not going to happen, which is those interactions, the coffee, the serendipitous encounters, which by the way, that bonds us. Before the COVID, organizations that were crazy about designing the perfect environment in which no offices, lots of interaction, bigger cafeterias, lots of food, so people would encounter, socialize, to develop more ideas, spontaneous collaboration. Well, now this is not happening. So my view of this is this. Now, many organizations are going to decide to work home, but hey, I think the most interesting thing for organizations, in hospitality, this is not possible, by the way, but we're talking about the type of companies. But so it's going to be like, all right, so you can work from home 2 days in a week, but there's a must to come to the organization. All right, so now we don't need the big space, but we need the smaller space. You don't have a private post. Now you go, there's an app, you book your place in advance, but hey, we need to encourage people to go to the office. Okay, whenever we have the bus, okay, because now it's not possible. Okay, but it will in June, hopefully, or May, or I don't know. What do you think about that?
I don't have the magic word. But well, hopefully when you said.
Yeah. Okay, but do you think other companies encourage, because some companies are feeling like more comfortable seeing that employees are productive?
Yeah, right. Okay. I think there's a mindset, a change in the mindset for many companies, because they have find out that they can work this way, okay, remote work.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to have to take care of the glue of the company, the relationships between the different employees and the connection. And this is something to be preserved. Okay, so I think in the future, in the near future, this will be necessary to find a way to make the people work together in a space, maybe from time to time. Okay, maybe once, 2 days, 1 or 2 days a week, something like this. But I think it's important because I think even more people, more workers, many workers find themselves as this kind of lose of connection. Okay, this, even they are missing this idea of daily relationship. This is part of their social life. Okay, so I think this is something to be recovered.
Thank you.
Okay, we have another question from online.
Yeah, you have here. Gerardo, please, can you try to talk? Just press the micro and go ahead.
This is our Gerardo.
Yes, former student of the school. He also wrote a question, but now that he's working, we prefer him to talk. Gerardo, he's not trying because I don't see his activity, but nevertheless, I can read for you the question here.
Can you hear me now? Hello?
Yes.
Cool. Thank you.
No, it's better if I ask myself. So, Arturo, first of all, congratulations on the book. I know you have kids, so planting a tree should be your next challenge, I assume. And I wanted to reflect on the conscious part of a conscious leadership. Since we are all conscious, I assume such consciousness has specific set of values associated to it. So my question is conscious leadership available to those without that specific set of values? How are they acquired? Are they family bound? Can an old dog learn new tricks?
That's a good question. Well,
that's my question. Thank you, Arturo.
Yeah.
Congrats.
Yeah. We know because we talked about that in our classes. Leadership is about values. We don't need to have all of the values, but there are universal values that they need to be shared. And by the way, those universal values, they're going to apply in every country, culture, and generation. It doesn't matter if you are millennial or you are an Xer or boomer. And now thinking about, I think there's a great documentary in Netflix now. It's called about this guy. Remember the ex-former president of the IMF, Strauss-Kahn? So you can have an example here, a very brilliant politician, very intelligent, but no values, with a real problem of sexual harassment. All right, people that might think they are really powerful, and because they are powerful, so everyone else, is there to serve. And I think that I'm really negative. But hey, the good news is that it's possible to change, not for many people, but hey, change is always there, right? Science has proof about the neuroplasticity of our brains, no? So, and by the way, again, one of the research of meditation is that it's a good way of change our character, our personality, or because meditation does this for us. Okay, change brain patterns. All right. So obviously, this change is not going to happen from one day to the other, but
I do agree with you.
Yeah.
Meditation helps, but the will to want to have values is really important. So I guess my point has to do with the concept of conscious leadership. But my point is to be that kind of person that can do actually that. You need to have a set of values that are family grown, or at least have that will to become that person. So it's a matter of wanting to be that person. It's not. I don't think that's available to everyone because.
First of all, there is not a perfect scenario. No one is perfect.
Yeah.
I want you to make that clear, right? Because the character of the leader, for example, that framework, I barely speak that in my book, but hey, you have 12 elements. No one can be perfect in absolutely everything. Amazing judgment, amazing collaboration, amazing integrity, amazing accountability, amazing justice. No, every situation is going to be a challenge. So how can you learn through life and experience? Self-awareness is going to help you learn. Otherwise, if you are not self-aware, you're not going to learn, or you're not going to change behaviors, values, patterns. But hey, no one is perfect. And by the way, now I'm talking about these, and tomorrow I can commit bigger errors. The question is how I'm going to cope with that.
Totally.
Because people, they go through life like zombies, you know? Automatic pilot.
Well, thank you very much, Arturo. I find myself.
Okay, one more question from online.
Yeah, we have Kalisha that she was waiting for a while, and then we do have Isabel again. But we get the word to Kalisha. So please, if you press your micro in the bottom center of your screen, you are already allowed to speak.
Hi, can you hear me?
Perfectly.
Thank you for your talk. I just wanted to ask, I used to work with some horrible bosses whose effects demoralized our teams, and it created a company culture of mistrust and demotivation, and turnover was very high in these companies that I worked in. But if you ask them, these leaders, they think they're doing leadership right, and they're following examples like Steve Jobs and other leaders who are notorious for being tough, and sensitivity is seen as weakness. So my question is, how do you incentivize leaders like that who really believe their way is the right way, like to change? And what incentivized you to change? Thank you.
So the question is, how can you change someone at the top or your manager's character or bad leadership? The response is that it's difficult. No, sometimes it's impossible. I've changed myself from many companies that they were like that, you know, dysfunctional cultures. And if I tell you the truth, I mean, I think things, however, they are improving, and you can see leadership skills, you know, developing and more there, and organizations are worrying about this. But how can you change things? Well, it's always depending on the power you do have to change things. How are you going to influence the people at the top? It's not about influence people underneath, but influence your bosses. That's a big task, and sometimes it's not possible. My only advice is that you haven't asked me for advice, but what do you do when you encounter yourself in these dysfunctional cultures? It's like, can you do your best to try to kind of isolate from that and try to influence bit by bit some people around you? But that's difficult. Most of us, we are humans, so this is going to affect us in a way or another. And I think now this is very bold to say, but I always recommend, as I did, you know, sooner or the later, when you have another job, to start changing for another company. Because I think it's sometimes also, by the way, being in a, as I said in the book, you know, being in a dysfunctional and even sick culture can affect you as a professional and as a person as well. I think I give you a couple of stories in the book and how I used to work in a hotel in Cancun that it was a dysfunctional, sick company culture, and how my behaviors changed, my mindset changed, and I kind of confront my values. I wasn't a role model with my values, you know, because I rather the money and I rather the position. So in a way, I changed for the worst. So that's going to run. But hey, we need to have a job. That's important as well.
Yes, please.
Well, Arturo, first of all, congratulations for your book. It looks very interesting. I agree with the idea that you must become the most exceptional person in the room if you want to become a pure leader. But does your books give any advice about how to deal with different personalities when live with the sample is not enough?
So can you be more specific when?
Yeah, when, for example, I have a very short experience as a manager, but I have a few. And sometimes you recognize that some members of the team, because they are older or they have more experience, they don't recognize you as a leader. So, but they are troublemaker, or they are sick, or they make a problem. Lead by example, as you try, is not enough.
We've confronted all of this problem, right? Yeah. Especially when you're young and it's the first time you lead, you have more experienced people. And these people, you say you go this way, but you know, people, they rather go to another way, right? Exactly. And they have power because the tenure or whatever, right? Yeah. And you don't have protection or you aren't aligned with your bosses, and that's a very difficult situation.
So how to deal
well,
with
the first thing I do recommend you is not to react in an intuitively way, like be more
autocratic. Okay, you need to be assertive in a way. All right. So if we go in this way, we go in this way. Now, how can you mix, assertiveness with patience? And that patience with someone, because I don't know. I think Jaime, he's here. He used to work in a very big hotel, and I remind when you told me. I mean, you've dealt with people very, very experienced, 20, 30 years tenure. Now, how can you change that mindset? And it's a process of influencing people. The first thing they need to feel is like you are credible. You are someone who's credible. It takes patience. It takes patience, but also it takes assertiveness. But this is not about being like an elephant, in a glass. So how can you? I mean, that's why people they say, at times that management is an art. It's not about theory only. It's not about knowledge. It's about and sometimes you need to spot the person who's a problem. Who's really a toxic person. That could help. But we are very easy to spot the person as toxic. Maybe we need to understand why that behavior. Maybe because the guy he's very skeptic about, because the organization has done it in a wrongly way for many years, and the guy he has his right to be offended. And why are you going to be the new guy in town who's going to change things? You're not credible unless you start demonstrating. So maybe you can change that behavior, but sometimes you cannot change. So if that person is toxic, you need to get rid of them. And this is also, by the way, this is also responsibility you have as a manager. Yeah. You cannot allow someone who's going to affect the whole team because he won't change, and by the way, he's not or she's not, so he has not a reason to act that way, because now you are acting.
Following to your question, how many times we have to, as a leader, we have to have this hard conversation that's really neat as a leader, to have a hard conversation with somebody. 1, 2, 3, how many times? That's the question that, as a leader, what do you think about it?
I've experienced situations in which this person is a toxic employee. They reported that he's a problem. He's supposed to he's going to be fired. Actually, I was the new manager coming to the hotel, and so he's the person who's now you have conversation with that person. So I'm new. We're going to start things from a new perspective. Blah blah blah. We're going to have more meetings because, and then you start sensing that the person is changing for good. But other times it's the contrary. Other times these people is not changing. So how many conversations? Well, I think it's easy when the people aren't reacting. When you see the attitude is not going to change from 1 week, 2 weeks, or 3 weeks. And that's the easiest thing. You just get rid of it. I mean, you are not a team player in this company. I think you need to go. Because it's not me. It's like you are affecting the whole team. It's not just me, my ego, who says something. But the problem is when the person is like this. So you have many conversations and it goes up, down, and then in hindsight, after 1 year, you just say, okay, I think we need to separate our ways. But hey, had I known this before, all right, but so there's no unique response for that, I guess.
Yeah, you book talk about this, yes.
Come again?
And the book talk about this. Any advice?
I'm talking about that, but I'm not giving lots of the specifics. But yeah, I'm talking about this part about leading a team, what it takes, about coaching as well, about company cultures, especially in those in the first group. Yeah.
Could you give us examples of daily behaviors to practice that can help us improve a better leader?
Okay, now I have this. Can you speak loud?
Could you please give us examples of daily behaviors to practice that could help us on becoming a better leader?
Daily behaviors?
Yes. Simple stuff.
Simple stuff?
Yes.
Well, there are thousands of them. I want you to get something very interesting in here, which is, this is not mine, this is from David Coyle. He wrote an amazing book. I think it's even better than my book. It's called The Culture Code. The Culture Code. And he's talking about behavioral cues. What is a behavioral cues? Like, it's not I'm the manager and I'm a good manager because I just provide great speeches to everyone. And I'm preaching all the time, blah, 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 have good communication skills. No, it's about my behavioral cue. So one thing is that how is my nonverbal communication happening to you? How's my tone of voice? How's my essence projected to you? But one thing for sure, within those behaviors, I really spot in those good bosses are the ones that they really listen. But listening is not just about and then I do something else. No, listening is about listening. I just like you ask the right questions, and then it's just like why, and by the way, you challenge the person constantly. And something else very important is like you let your people challenge you and influence you. So it's just like, this is not about we're gonna do this, or this is my idea for, or this is the solution we're gonna implement. No, it's about listening to absolutely everyone, maybe changing your mind. That's important.
Thank you.
So those are good behaviors.
Okay, and we have Isabella online. She wants to ask something.
Hi,
Isabella?
yeah, you touched upon it already a little bit 2 questions ago, I think, but I wanted to ask how you can, when you adopt the leadership style, how you can find this happy medium or the balance between gaining respect and getting things done and having efficiency with your employees or your group, but also forging these great relationships and being liked as well. Because sometimes, you know, if you want to be liked as a leader, then you sacrifice respect, or you end up compromising on other things. And, you know, if you go, it's sort of like finding the middle of the spectrum of where, you know, you have this good group dynamic, you have good relations, but you're also really effective. But, you know, to find the balance between all of that.
I think that's a good question. I think, well, that's why, you know, leadership is about experience overall, right? It's not really about theory. And, you know, we lead by working. Right, so this is a big part, you know, experience. But I think the right balance for me is the organization or the company goals and objectives. So we go this way. This is a purpose. This is a mission, and we go this way. For example, customer service, exceptional customer service, and blah blah blah. But and then we go this way, and then you're gonna see people like going that way or going that way. So obviously you need to get the people towards the direction, because it's not going to be that easy. Sometimes people, they have different perceptions, preconceptions. So I think the balance, it used to be this famous restaurateur in the United States, which is very famous. It's called Denny Meyer. He's the CEO of Union Square Hospitality. He said that good leaders, they need to be gentle. So you won't lose anyone's respect. You need to be very assertive. It's like, so at times, you need to be really clear. This is, maybe if you'd like, authoritative. But this is very certain moments in which you need to say, like, sorry guys, we're going this way. Okay, and now this is my goal. And also, there's a mix of humbleness in here, so that possibility to change the course of action and then see, hey, I think you were right, I'm wrong. New data proves this, I'm sorry guys. And then you need to be kind of inflict a sense of urgency. And by the way, this is something I used to fail, a sense of urgency. What do I mean by that? Again, as I said, you know, whenever you start doing things good is the moment you start going down, because you relax. And you relax as a company, you relax as a team. How can you get the best? Not burning out people in the way, but how can you constantly mobilize people to be better. Yeah. And always improving. I think some companies, they say, hey, people, they say we are great, but we don't stop much stuff. We celebrate, because celebrations are important, but I don't know if I've answered your question.
Yeah, more or less. No, but it's difficult. I mean, it's like you say, there's nobody that's perfect, and I think these things are at the opposite end of the spectrum, and somewhere in the middle is basically perfect, you know. And I think it's hard because every situation is different, and you have to learn how to navigate it, and every person is different, every employee is different. So, like you said, there's no exact model or theory that you can apply, and you sort of have to interpret each situation differently.
No.
Yeah.
So there's not, and this is going to be a learning by doing, and sometimes it's going to work, others won't. But hey, there are things that they're going to be universal and they're going to apply. Okay, basic things about motivation, about people engagement, but hey, it's going to be you also having to cope with certain people, certain behaviors, and certain priorities.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And maybe someone wants to add something, some remark? Okay, if not, once again, congratulations with the book launch, and it's a pleasure for us to having you today. And thank you everyone, both presential and online, to be here with us, to join us and participate in this really interesting and profound discussion.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, first, all the people here. Thank you for coming. And second, all of the people that you are online, thank you. And also thank you to you, the people from events, the Master of Events Management that are helping the organization, which by the way, I thought a great, amazing organization. Thank you, Diego. Thank you, Raul. And thank you, Ostelea.
Thank you.
Mr.